Hello, welcome to another episode of Deck Musings. So we're now up to this period here, February 20th, 2004 to June the 19th, 2004, in terms of, what particular deck we're going to take a look at. So we're back to a tournament deck, and we're in that period in the year which probably I am most interested in, I think. And this is at the Pro Tours, they'll often have one of them where the format is block constructed, but it's just the first two sets of the block which have just been released. So this would be Mirrodin and Darksteel. It's something about these that particular format that I do enjoy. I mean, I think, as I've said in previous episodes, I do just enjoy block formats generally, but there's something about the big set and then the first small set that, I don't know, just makes me smile to see what decks come up from that combination. So generally in standard, here's a list of what the MTG wiki article for the standard timeline has listed as the sort of decks that were around in the general tournament meta. So around that time you've got GP Brussels in May, and then you've got Italy, Japan and US Nationals in June, and then there was a ban which won't kick in till next week's episode, which is where Skull Clamp is banned. But at that time, as I've mentioned, of course, there was a general problem with affinity decks. You'll see it took a while for them to resolve it as we get onto Champions, but that's for a future episode. Anyway, so things were getting to be slightly problematic, I think, but at this point, you'll be interested to see what was in the top 8 of this event, because the top 8 wasn't swamped out with affinity decks. There was something else that was really present there, which is one of the decks we're going to look at. I will say it's a red deck, but it's not like a red deck wins type setup. So what else can I tell you? Well, this is where the deck is coming from that we're looking at. So you can see, Mirrodin Block Connstructed, and was held in Kobe in Japan. I believe it's the first Japanese player to win a Pro Tour. Masashiro Kuroda, I think that is. Gabriel Nassif took second place. So let's have a look at the top 8. Well, and beyond here. I always find this website's really useful, MTG top 8, when I'm talking about tournament decks, particularly from Pro Tours and GPs and the like. You can find a lot of information here about decks. And you can see actually this goes up to the top 16 decks. And you can see what I'm talking about here. If we just look at the top 8, and the deck I'm going to look at, as I've said, is this one, this big red deck. But just before I do, you can see in the top 8 we've got 2 affinity decks. There we go. And you can see this one's interesting because I think I'm right here. There's no basic land here. It's all non-basics. So Blinkmoth Nexus, Darksteel Citadel, Glimmer Void, Great Furnace, Sea of the Synod, Vault of Whispers. And here's the other affinity deck, which was played by Ben Stark. Again, You can see, look, 16 land. How many land does this have? 19. So pretty low on the land side of things. But then there's all these big red decks, which are variations on a theme. So as I click on them, you'll probably see here certain cards get swapped out. It's also interesting what gets main decked in some of these. For instance, this one main decks Shatter, because it's obviously assuming that there's going to be lots of artifacts decks that it's going to go up against. And you can see some are pretty simple, like this one and this one, I think, are... Oops, sorry. Yeah, not dissimilar. And like I said, they're all pretty much a variation. Some of them, you can see here, is playing a lot more non-basics than, say, some of these other examples. So that's 20 mountains and 4 stalking stones. But yeah, a lot of this big red deck. Now the other thing you'll notice, if you'll notice with red decks, this is a red control deck. So, you know, we don't have a big creature count in this compared to other more, you know, like red deck wind types deck or slide decks that we're maybe more familiar with. So it's interesting to see this. So let's actually look at the deck before we get onto the individual cards and start drilling down, looking at interesting cards that are similar to the cards in the deck in Magic as we do in these episodes. So I'm just going to put it into the format which I like for this episode, which is the grid format. So we have 4 artifacts, and this one, activated abilities of artifacts and creatures can't be played unless they're mana abilities. So there's 3 dampening matrices in here, or matrices, however you want to say that. Then we got the creatures, which is pretty low count. We've got 8 in total, 4 Arc-Sloggers. So this is a 4/5 for 3 and 2 red. It's a pretty high casting cost. For a single red, you can remove the top 10 cards of your library from the game, and Arc-Slogger deals 2 damage to target creature or player. We've also got 4 Solemn Simulacrums, 4 to cast. It's a 2/2. When it comes into play, you can search your library for a basic land card and put that card into play tapped. If you do, shuffle your library, and when it's put into the graveyard, you get to draw a card. And we've got 16 instants. You can sort of see where a lot of the damage that the deck's going to be doing is coming from, but also, you know, ways of removing stuff. So we've got 4 Barbed Lightnings, and actually let's try and put this on more. Probably better to put it on a curve because I find that's a little bit better. There we go. So 4 Electrostatic Bolts, single red, deals 2 damage to target creature. If it's an artifact creature, Electrostatic Bolt deals 4 damage to it instead. 4 Shrapnel Blasts, 1 and a red. As an additional cost to cast Shrapnel Blast, sacrifice an artifact. It deals 5 damage to target creature or player. Barb Lightning, it's 2 and a red, so yeah, 4 each of all of these actually. So 2 and a red. Choose one. Either deals 3 damage to target creature, or Barb Lightning deals 3 damage to target player. There's also this entwine cost of 2, so you can actually choose both if you pay the entwine cost. And then Pulse the Forge. So 1 and 2 red, instant. Pulse the Forge deals 4 damage to target player, and if that player has more life than you, return Pulse of the Forge to its owner's hand. We've got 24 lands in the deck. There's 4 Blinkmoth Nexus. So tap, add colours to your mana pool. For 1, it becomes a 1/1 Blinkmoth artifact creature with flying until end of turn. It's still a land. 1 tap, target Blinkmoth gets 1/1 until end of turn. So obviously, once you've got multiples of these out, you can use 1 to pump the other one. And then we've got 4 Darksteel Citadels, which is indestructible. It's an artifact land, and you can tap it to add 1 to your mana pool. 16 mountains in the deck. And then there's 8 sorceries, again 4 ofs here. So we've got 4 detonates. X and a red, destroy target artifact with converted mana cost X. It can't be regenerated. Detonate deals X damage to that artifact's controller. And then 4 fireballs. So fireball was reprinted in Darksteel. So it's X and a red, sorcery speed. It deals X damage divided evenly, rounded down among any number of target creatures and or players. As an additional cost to play fireball, pay 1 for each target beyond the first. So you can see there's multiple ways here of dealing with artifacts. As you saw with variants of this, there were other cards that were mained deck, like Shatter. This one doesn't have Shatter in it, in the main deck, which also dealt with artifacts. So yeah, you're going to be, basically blowing the opponent's creatures up, doing direct damage to the player, and then you've got here Arc-Slogger. Obviously you can swing with that as well. So yeah, slightly different approach from a red deck from maybe what we've seen before. So now we get onto the sideboard. We've got 4 Echoing Ruins, 1 on a red, destroy target artifact and all other artifacts with the same name as that artifact. Talisman of Impulse, add colours to your mana pool, tap 4 red or green and it deals 1 damage to you. Talisman of Indulgence, adds 1 mana to your mana pool, taps for black or red, deals 1 damage to you. We've got 4 Molten Rains, so 1 and 2 red, destroys a target land. If that land's a non-basic, Molten Rain deals 2 damage to the land's controller. And then Furnace Dragon, which is the only affinity card in here. So 6 and 3 red with affinity for artifacts, so the spell costs 1 less to play for each artifact you control, has flying, and when it comes into play, if you played it from your hand, remove all artifacts from the game. So yeah, as I said, interesting deck. So there's the mountains, 4 nice pieces of mountain artwork. Darksteel Citadel, so this has Indestructible. You can see it's been reprinted quite a few times. It is considered to be part of the Meridian Block land cycle. So in terms of in here, or in Magic generally, if we look at lands that are indestructible, did I spell that wrong? Probably. Indestructible. It's Tibble, not Tabble. Indestructible. And his first printing. So looking at this, yeah, it was the first indestructible land. Dark Depths wasn't indestructible, but it produced an indestructible legendary 2020 black avatar creature token, and that was from Cold Snap. And later we've got something here. I'll flip it over, yeah. So the flip side is indestructible. So let's move on and just see where we've actually got any other lands in Magic that were actually indestructible. So yeah, we have one here from Amonkhet. This again is a flip with a land on one side and then an indestructible creature on the other. Oh, sorry, yeah. It gives non-angel creatures you control indestructible. So it doesn't really count. Probably what I should have done is filtered out the double face cards here. Caladime. Tyrite Sanctum. Again, it's producing or it's targeting a legendary creature. So it's really these from Modern Horizons which are indestructible, and you can see there's a full like double cycle in all of the colours, and then yeah, this one. So quite a number of these sort of target legendary creatures, give them indestructible, or this one's targeting or giving non-angel creatures. But the ones where the land is indestructible itself is going to be this one here, Cascading Cataracts. So it wasn't until Amonkhet then that we actually saw that on a land, and then the Modern Horizons 2 ones. So not very widespread. We have Blinkmoth Nexus from Darksteel. Okay. So I'll look at Tribal Blinkmoth. That's funny. Just one card. Okay, that's been tagged up. My guess is by now I've looked at this, but let's revisit this because it may have been a little while. So yeah, so the first time we really see this idea of taking a land and making it something else, in this case a creature, would be Mishra's Factory, so Antiquities. And we get Stalking Stones. And then from then on, you'll see we're getting a few cycles. So we have these ones from Urza's Legacy. So that one's what, a 2/1 blue creature with flying, 1/5. Interestingly, they don't specifically mention sort of creature subtypes, do they? It's just its colour. Then we get on to this one from Judgment. Then we have Blinkmoth Nexus. And we have some interesting ones here, which are one-offs. So, Svogthos. So this one does, so here, really, we're seeing it from here, yeah. It's starting to mention, you know, creature subtypes. So Blinkmoth here, Plant Zombie here. This one's interesting because this is a creature by virtue of the fact that you can play it face down as a 2/2 creature. So it doesn't, it's almost like it goes the reverse. Rather than sort of being a land and then becoming a creature, you have the option to start it out as a creature and then make it become a land. We got Mutavault, which was from Morning Tide, so another sort of one-off in a set. And then, and these are probably my first introduction to it, because I wouldn't have seen sets prior to this in terms of opening them when they came out. So yeah, it would have been World Wake when I first became aware of these, because I really hadn't gone back at the point I was opening Zendikar block stuff. I wouldn't have gone back much to earlier sets, so I wouldn't really been aware of all of this stuff. Although, weren't these saying that? Actually, I may have misspoke there, because these were in 10th edition. So no, that's wrong. I wonder why I didn't really notice him that much. So, because what triggered my memory is this one. Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, they were reprinted in 10th edition, so I would have seen them when I opened them. Maybe it just didn't register that much. Yeah, but these are the ones I tended to remember more, I think. And again, interesting here, you can see these are two-coloured ones, and they have an additional one here which is colourless at a lower rarity, which is Dread Statuary. Oh, there's Blinkmoth Nexus. See, that becomes a 1/1 Blinkmoth artifact. I wonder why that's not mentioned. It's not tagged up with the other one. Yeah. Curious. Must be an oversight, I suppose. Because I did think of that. I'm thinking, well, isn't there Blinkmoth Nexus that produces Blinkmoth tokens? And then, not surprisingly, we've got a cycle again in Battle for Zendikar. Now, would that be... So these ones would be what? An allied cycle. And then these would be the enemy cycle. Okay. And then again you can see here we've got one-offs. In a few sets in Zendikar Rising there was a one-off. Now of course some of these may well have been reprinted in later sets, that's the only thing. As is the case with the ones for 10th edition. Certainly some of these you'll see turning up in various decks. Well, these ones, there's lots of different versions of the artwork there. Slight variations. Kind of Mishra's Foundry. Another cycle here. Oh, there, these ones from Wilds of Eldraine. So these would be... It's enemy coloured, aren't they? And this one, Lost Caverns of Ixalan. And these are allied. So yeah, it is a thing that you see occasionally in Magic, and it definitely, there's quite a lot of cycles of them. And then we get these like odd, interesting ones that are just one-offs in a set. I think it's quite nice as well when you have something like this where there's not too much of it. It makes you get quite, it brings a smile to your face when you, particularly if you're not too aware of a set and you open a set and it's either like a new cycle of them or there's that's a reprint. Mistress Factory, was that reprinted? Yeah, 4th edition. So there is one for 194. Okay, moving on. Shrapnel Blast. So let's have a look. What have we got? Bombard, burn with set mechanics, synergy artifact, burn any. Sacrifice. What's bombard then? Sacrifice something to deal end damage. Okay. See also fling. Ah, okay. So with fling, 35 taggings. Sacrifice a creature to deal its power and damage to something. Right. Okay. So that's the difference then. So this one is just a certain amount of damage that is given on the card, as opposed to fling, where the amount of damage scales based on the power of the sacrificed creature. Okay. Let's just look at Bombard and see what's going on. Oh, that was Bombard's self, right. Good. Did I remember to? Yep. Orcish mechanics. Oh, there we go. Antiquities again. Tap to do 2 points of damage to any target. Each time you choose this ability, you must choose one of your artifacts in play and place it in the graveyard. That's a slightly different way of doing things. This artifact cannot be one already on its way to the graveyard, and artifact creatures killed this way cannot be regenerated. Let's have a look and see how that's been oracled. Sacrifice an artifact. Orcish mechanics deals 2 damage to any target. That's funny. Slightly more simplified. Also simplified online as well. And some using artwork. How much are they? 27. Okay. 27 cents. Goblin Grenade. Yeah. So some you can see you have to sacrifice a specific thing. Others, yeah, it's open. But there's a few interesting conditions as well, isn't there? Like this one, sacrifice itself, so it is a self bombard. But you get slightly more if you control any snow-covered swamps. Oh my word, that's pretty dense. Yeah, still pretty dense on the Oracle text as well. It's interesting that one does actually scale based on number of creatures you control, or the number of creatures an opponents control. Okay. But I'm assuming, of course, that's because, yeah, so wouldn't that be under fling? Yeah. I suppose because it's flinging itself. So who knows how they decide the difference between fling and bombard, and of course self-bombard would be a subset of bombard. So that's why we're getting some self-bombard stuff here. It's Bosch. So we got a few things like that from Fifth Dawn as well. Mouth of Ronan. There's some interesting stuff in here, isn't there? As it's obviously been printed on a number of different cards. These are interesting when they came out, these living weapons. Oh yeah, I remember this. Oh, and yeah, there's a puzzle knot. Yeah, that's a bit of a thing, isn't it, where you get these cards which sack themselves and blow stuff up as a sort of, you know, second ability. Okay, Pulse of the Forge. 4 damage spell for 3. If that player has more life than you, return Pulse of the Forge to its owner's hand. So, good excuse to use your own life as a resource, I suppose, to get that, get it to bounce back to your hand. Okay, auto buyback. Okay. Cycle of Darksteel Pulses. Okay. Oh, yeah. I see. So I'll look at that first. So you've got Pulse of the Fields. Oh yeah, look, they're all... Oh, I see, yeah. So they all go back to your hand if a certain condition is met. So with the Pulse of the Fields, you've got life gain. And if the opponent has more life than you, it goes back to its hand. The blue one, you discard a card from your hand. If an opponent has more cards in hand than you, 3 cards from his hand, then choose one of them. So you're discarding from your hand. This one you're messing with your opponent's hand. That player has more cards in hand than you. Pulse of the Forge is damage, and it checks life, and then the green one is a creature, and it checks for creatures. If an opponent controls more creatures than you. Okay, so that's interesting, isn't it? Because the more times this gets bounced back, is it the case that the less likely it's then going to get bounced back? Because, you know, if you're gaining life when you play this, next time you play it, there's a good chance you are going to have more life. Same with all of these, yeah. So they're almost like self-governing. So they don't get too out of hand. Interesting. Okay, this auto buyback thing. I don't remember looking at this before, but we'll see. No. Oops. Oh, so yeah, there's all the pulses. So that was the first time there was auto buyback. So you got a cycle there, a couple of cards there. Is that another possible cycle? Not sure actually. It's a bit over the shop with the rarities, so I'm not sure. Might just been a bit of a thing in the set. Got a couple from Scars of Mirrodin. I'll check and see if any of these are... So this is the only one that looks possibly that it could have been a cycle, but we'll see. Clashbacks, okay. Recross, redeem, release, research, revive. Redeem, research, revive, release, recruit. Yeah, okay. So there was a cycle in there. Looks like this one was the only instance. Okay. Good old Fireball. So, yeah, it's been kicking around for a while. If you go back, there we have it, Alpha. And I think it's probably was this one of the first combos with Channel? So if you're not familiar with Channel, there it is. And if we go back in time, oops, what did I just do there? All the way back to here, you can see also in Alpha. Till end of turn, you may add colourless mana to your mana pool for 1 life each. These additions are played with the speed of an interrupt. Life spent this way is not considered damage. So you're using life to generate mana, and then with Fireball, we go back, you're then utilising that in your X part. So you've got to have at least 1 red to pull that off. But yeah, one of the early, if not the first, combos. Of course, you've got to be pretty careful when you time it. So what does it get tagged as? Burn any multiple targets. Strive. Okay. Better than Blaze. So Blaze is X and red, but just deals damage. X damage to any targets. You can't split it down. And then it's about similar to Comet Storm, which is X and 2 red. So slightly more expensive. It does also have multi-kicker on it. So it does this, I think it does this additional target business. Hang on, where's it gone? Choose any target, then choose another target for each time this spell was kicked. Yeah, so it uses multi-kicker to pull off this part here. So, I mean, it's the same thing really, I suppose, because it says here as an additional cost to play Fireball, pay 1 for each target beyond the first, and then down the bottom here you can see this one, it's got multi-kicker 1. You can pay that many times you like, choose any target, then choose another target for each time the spell was kicked. Yeah. So the additional target cost is the same, it's just this Comet Storm has a double red as its starting position. But here you can see Comet Storm deals X damage to each of them, whereas Fireball does X damage divided evenly, rounded down. So yeah, again, slightly different way of implementing that, and the resulting effect. So what's Strive then? Cards that require paying an additional cost per... Okay. Is this something I've looked at before? No, it doesn't look like I have. Okay. Let's go down the Strive rabbit hole. And there's Fireball. Wizard of the Coast customer service, which must be an unglued. There's Comet Storm. Strength. Okay, there's several of these in Journey into Nyx, by the looks of things, because of Strive. Oh, I see. So yeah, they specifically keyworded it. Okay, it's coming back now. So from that point onwards, every time they used it, did they always... Must have, yeah, no. So that one it doesn't. Meteor Blast. Okay, so it's doing it. Oh, it's doing it a slightly different way then. So I see. Okay, interesting. So 4 damage, and then the X part is the... Oh, that's why that is then. But it does look, once they started, once they keyworded that Strive, then, yeah, that was used again. So it cropped up here in Commander, but the effect hasn't really turned up again in that sort of form, either as Strive or as that original layout. So yeah, it's curious, isn't it, how this is why I like doing these sort of, this series particularly, is you see how an effect on a card like this, for example, how it's implemented in slightly different ways. So you start off here, and then it becomes implemented off the back of multi-kicker. And then here, it's specifically like a set mechanic ability, which is keyworded. So Electrostatic Bolt. Okay, so 1 for a 2 damage spell, but if it's an artifact, it deals 4 damage instead. Burn with set mechanic, hate set mechanic, hate artifact, creature, removal creature. So what I was curious, and obviously there's no specific name for this, is if you have a card that says deals, how am I going to do this? So we do deals, Oracle, damage 2, and then is this going to capture it? We'll see if it so we'll also bung that in, make sure that it's included in there, that I've actually captured it. Okay. So yeah, I was just curious. I wanted to capture any type of thing which says, you know, do this, but if it's this, then do this. So we're just going to see. So yeah, we've got Disintegrate, which is the one where it's like does X damage. What's that? Where's that in there? I think if it's, yeah, so if it would die, okay. Fast Bond. Scorching Lava has got Kicker. So if you paid the kick, so we're probably going to see a lot of kicker spells here. Maybe. I don't know. Perhaps not. There's a few. There's our Electrostatic Bolt. So then what I'm going to do in a moment is I'm just going to look for specifically damaged spells. So yeah, we can see there's several here, obviously kicker ones. So if it's been kicked. And what about... Oh dear me. Okay. Interesting way it's been combined up with in different ways. Either in the case of Electrostatic Bolt, it's doing damage, but if it's in this case an artifact creature, it does more damage. And you've got other things that don't do damage, but if in this case it's been kicked, or there was another one here. Yeah, if some of the criteria is met, it does damage. Okay. Right, Detonate. So yeah, specifically destroys a target artifact with converted mana cost X, can't be regenerated. So let me just go back. So Detonate was mainboarded, okay. Okay, mana value matters. Wow, okay. Yeah, thinking about it, there's going to be quite a lot of cards which do that. But, yeah, it's all over the shop colour-wise, not surprising, because it's a number of different things. If I was just dealing with things that matter because they're being destroyed, we also see a reduction here. So yeah, all the way back from Antiquities. I've got Powder Keg. Oh yeah, there's Horde Smelt the Dragon. Consume the Meek. Steel Hellkite from Scars of Mirrodin. Okay. Dampening Matrix. This is interesting. Activated abilities of artifacts and creatures can't be played unless they're mana abilities. And that's been mainboarded. Main decked. Oh yeah. Null Rod. And of course it's symmetrical as well. Oh, that's a nice succinct group of cards, isn't it? So Null Rod from Weatherlight. Players cannot play any artifact abilities requiring an activation cost. Then we've got Dampening Matrix. Stony Silence from, what would that be, Innistrad. Khan the Great Creator from War of the Spark. And then Collector Ufi from Modern Horizons. Yeah, I suppose it makes sense to have it in Modern Horizons. Barb Lightning. Excuse me. So, where are we getting on to now in the grand scheme of things? Not quite on the sideboard yet. Getting pretty close, I imagine. A few more cards here, though. Okay, Barb Lightning. Another instant. Yeah, we haven't even looked at our creatures yet, have we? There's so few in the deck. Okay, so better than Open Fire. And better than Precision Bolt. And that's because of this modal. It's modal, but then also you can entwine it. So for an extra 2, you get both. So either 3 damage to target creature or 3 damage to target player for a cost of 3. So 3 for damage 3. And then if you want to pay the entwine cost, so CMC of 5, you get 3 damage to the creature and 3 damage to the target player. Yep, so there's lots of modal spells in. I'm going to have a look, actually, see when the first modal spell was. I think that would be an interesting thing to do here. Burn player, modal, remove. I think a lot of these we've looked in previous episodes on other cards. Yeah, let's do that. Yep, so choice from 2 or more distinct functions, although as you saw there, it's interesting how they combine that up with the entwine. And I might specifically look at that in a moment. Oh yeah, so yeah, it's been around for a while. Limited edition. Wow. Oh, of course, the charms. Yeah. So were the charms the first time it was really on a cycle of cards, I suppose? But it's interesting, isn't it? There's quite a bit of modality around that period in Magic. And then, of course, these, yeah, so... yeah, lots of charms. Wow. Yeah, there's a number of modal things in. Oh yeah, look. And that yeah, of course it makes sense, doesn't it, with the entwine, that you would expect that. So yeah, we've got entwine in the set. So yeah. you needs to be a modal spell in order to do that. And then bring it up to date. I wonder if... So I'm just trying to remember whether this works. Yeah, it does. I'm just looking to see which ones were part of the cycle. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean the rest of the cycle would be modal. It just means they're part of a cycle generally, but I was curious for those which were part of a cycle and were also modal. Is it mainly charms? Yeah. I think it might be, mightn't it? So far, like commands here. Back to charms again. So the Exarchs had it. More charms, yeah. Okay. And it was on random cards in Fate Reforged. But these cards are all parts of cycles. Wow, must have been a lot of cycles in Fate Reforged. But yeah, just one card out of a cycle rather than all of the cycle being modal. Oh, and then commands again. So yeah, you see it on commands, see it on charms. We've got confluences here that cycle from Commander 2015. Cycle of interventions, cycle of inscriptions. Is that the full cycle or not? I don't think so. Some wills. More commands. Confluence, more chance. So, okay. So, Solemn Simulacrum. What have we got? Tutor land basic. That's what I'm curious about. Particularly where it has been stapled onto a creature. Oh yeah, look, Yavimaya. Okay. Crows and Tusker. It's also got cycle on it. Scurry Tribelter. So I'm sure a lot of people recognise these as getting included in EDH Commander decks. That's Pilgrim's Eye. Not surprisingly, a lot of them are in green, but we've got a number of artifacts which then makes them playable in any deck. So Burnished Heart's another one. 2/2 for 3, and Solemn is 2/2 for 4. When it comes into play, search your library for a basic land card, and when it exits play, it ends up in the graveyard. So it has to has to be put in the graveyard. No good if it's exiled. You may draw a card with Burnished Hearts. You sack it. So it's like for 2 basic land cards, then put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. A Skittering Surveyor. Yeah, so, implemented in a number of different ways on creatures in Magic. That's pretty cool. Oh, and also, done obviously through land cycling. That's something I hadn't thought about, actually. Arc-Slogger. Okay. There we go. Remove the top 10 cards of your library from the game. Wow. It's pretty heavy. Burn any. Mill exile. And you're exiling the stuff as well. It's not milling it. And for 10 cards, you get to ping for 2. And self-mill is a thing. Exile mill is a thing. So slightly less of these. So let's just look at the different way that... Okay, so this is manifesting. Here we got 4 cards from the set that remove cards from the game. Remove your library from the game. Oh dear. Scribnibble is one of my favourites. 2 and a black, 1/1. Exile the top card of target player's library. If it's a land card, you gain 1 life. Landfall whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control. You may untap Scribnibblers. And of course, there was lots of exile shenanigans in Battle for Zendikar. Had ways of interacting with the exile zone as well, wasn't it? It's pretty unusual. And the talisman, so there's a number of mana rocks that we've looked at before, and this particular one is something that we have, I think we would have looked at last week, and the fact that you have the initial cycle. And so these were, and it's difficult to see, isn't it, sometimes with the washed out colours here, but we've got the allied ones and then the enemy ones that were printed for Modern Horizons. And in this deck, these were in the sideboard. And we have Molten Rain, a favourite of mine. Destroy target land. If that land is a non-basic, Molten Rain deals 2 damage to the land's controller. Obviously must have cropped up when we did the No Hand No Land episode. So you get to, under the right circumstances, you get to both destroy a target land and burn the player who controls the target land. Interesting. It doesn't look like I've ever done this before. Now that's really unusual. Maybe it's lands that destroy lands. Yeah. 83 cards that somewhere on them have destroy target land. And if we go through, look at the different types. So what do we see? So 3 cards where there's an instant that destroys target land. And it might be there's also some cards where, you know, it might have like destroy target basic land or target non-basic land. So I wonder if I would be better off doing something like this. I don't know. Yeah, I'll leave it at that for the moment. But just in overview. So 53 sorceries. Arc of Blight. "21 creatures. Tons of other land doing it. And then one enchantment. And finally Planeswalker. Nothing. So the other thing is, as I pointed out there, it's probably easier to do on this. So you've got the possibility that that could also have the word basic in there. Basic land, destroy target. Oh. Let's just try and do this a different way. Just get wording. Okay. Ah, that's why. That's more like it. So yeah. And I don't think, yeah, there is that thing. But of course, this anyway does all land. So no real need for it, I suppose. And yeah, again, we could go through, assuming the wording's the same. It's like maybe slightly less. Specifically, enchantment. No artifacts. Planeswalker. Just make sure I didn't miss that. No. Okay. Furnace Dragon. Wow. 5/5/4/9. But it does have affinity for artifacts. It's got flying. When it comes into play, if you played it from your hand, remove all artifacts from the game. Only ever printed in Darksteel. Has affinity. It mirrors Chrome Scale Dragon. Chrome Scale Drake. 6, 3 blue, 3/4 with flying affinity for artifacts. And when it comes into play, reveal the top 3 cards of your library. Put all artifact cards revealed this way into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. See, symmetrical. Because it removes all artifacts from the game. Sweeper Artifact Exile. How big a thing is that, and what sort of things do we see it with? Let's have a look. So, I suppose the first time would have been on Degree of Annihilation. It's on a sorcery. On this one here, we got the one we're looking at. On a dragon. It's on Merciless Eviction, which is white, black. It's on Calamine's Captain, for when it becomes monstrous. Consulate Crackdown, Ajani, Pure Steel Angel. That's alchemy only, I suppose. Farewell, which is a modal one, and everything comes to dust. Just Convoke. And then finally, Echoing Ruin. Destroy target artifact and all other artifacts with the same name. Now, let's have a look, but I think, was this, yeah, this cycle of echoes where, so the white one did enchantments, the green one did creatures, okay, that does creatures, the red one does artifacts, non-land permanents, does bounce, yeah, bounce permanents. So destroys enchantments, pumps creatures, depletes creatures, whatever you want to call it, -2/-2, so it'll blow up a -2 and below toughness creature. In terms of if you're trying to use it to remove something, but of course it will just reduce the power toughness on anything that it doesn't kill. Echoing Ruin, as we've seen, artifacts, and then this is bounce. Interesting cycle. Onomatopoeia. Similar to Shatter, which destroys a target artifact. That's one in a red, but yeah, we'll get anything else with the same name. Of course, also applies to your stuff. That's the only trouble. Whereas Shatter is targeted. But in a red deck, which has been built around trying to deal with a format where there's a lot of artifacts, yeah, it's useful. Although of course you saw here there's a number of cards in here, both in the main board and the sideboard, which are artifacts. So obviously you have to be careful, but again, this is a sideboard card, so obviously for certain matchups. So there we have it. Hopefully you enjoyed that flip through of the deck and the various cards therein. It's a bit of a different red deck. Not unusual to see red decks with artifacts in them, but just the fact that, it's a red control deck, and has not many creatures. Thanks once again for watching. Bye for now, and I will catch you in a future episode.